The date is March 3rd, 2021. On this day, I saw on heritageunits.com that Pennsylvania Railroad 8102 was leading a coal train up the Columbus District. Knowing it had been a long while since I saw this engine, I decided to go out and see it again. I ended up setting up in Asheville, Ohio, at the West Main Street Railroad crossing, and after some time passed, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance, and I got set up to watch it roll by. Unfortunately, the coal train rolled to a stop just after crossing the Walnut Creek Bridge, and for the rest of the day, it would be stuck here until the afternoon. Thanks to some NS trains blocking the line up at Watkins Yard, not because they were derailed, but because they were working the yard and blocking both mainline tracks. While we were waiting here, I got the opportunity to get a closer look at 8102. Although from a distance, the locomotive looks alright, up close it becomes apparent that many people, probably both rail fans and workers alike, have written all sorts of stuff onto the side of the locomotive. Pennsylvania Railroad 8102 is a GE ES44AC, built in 2012. In reality, 8102 actually belongs to Norfolk Southern as one of their heritage units. We'll get back to the history of 8102's railroad here in a little bit.
I've been here ever since.
Behind 8102 is Norfolk Southern 4242, a rebuilt GE AC44C6M. It was originally built in 1997 for Norfolk Southern as a C40-9W and was given the number 9035. In 2019, 9035 was sent to Norfolk Southern's Junior NS shops to be rebuilt as it is now. For Pennsylvania Railroad fans, it is great knowing that one of the Pennsylvania Railroad's famed locomotive shops is still alive and kicking with us today with activity. Anyway, after many hours of inactivity, Norfolk Southern finally got back up and running again, and the first train we saw here was a southbound Norfolk Southern freight train, one of the trains that was working Watkins Yard earlier. It was being led by Norfolk Southern 7584 and 9820. NS 7584 is a GE ES40DC built in 2006, and 9820 is a C44-9W built in 2004. We'll now get into the history of the famed Pennsylvania Railroad that 8102 represents. For the video's sake, I'll try to consolidate the history of the famed Pennsylvania Railroad as much as possible, as with a history as big as that railroad, I can't fit everything into such a short video. And besides, there are many other sources that do a much better job in going into detail about the railroad's history. Anyway, for the few people who don't know already, the Pennsylvania Railroad was a dominant Class I railroad back in the heyday of railroading. Starting on April 13, 1846, the Pennsylvania Railroad would grow to be a massive railroad, with many lines stretching from New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., to Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Detroit, Chicago, and even St. Louis. The railroad was best well known for its fleet of passenger trains, such as the Red Arrow, the Pennsylvania Limited, and even the famed Broadway Limited, just to name a few. They were also well known for their home-built steam locomotives, such as the 462 K4s, built from their Juniata shops in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Getting back to our train here, after the freight train got by, dispatch finally allowed 8102 to depart with its coal train, and we got to watch as the train rolled out. Getting back to the Pennsyl's history, the railroad prospered well into World War II, but after the war, the railroad began to see a decline in traffic. Despite having the same decline and issues as many other railroads were facing, the Pennsylvania Railroad was slow to react to the changes. And thanks to the slow reactions, the railroad went into a downward spiral of financial woes. Eventually, to avoid declaring bankruptcy, in 1957, the Pennsylvania Railroad started talking with its longtime rival, the New York Central, about the possibility of merging with each other. Then, on February 1st, 1968, the Pennsylvania Railroad and the New York Central Railroad both merged together to form the Penn Central Railroad, ending the Pennsylvania Railroad's existence. Sadly though, despite having 10 years to plan the merger, it all fell apart, as many of the problems that plagued the Pennsylvania Railroad were lumped onto the newly formed Penn Central. Combining it with existing problems from the New York Central didn't help either, and by 1970, the Penn Central declared bankruptcy, making it the nation's largest bankruptcy at the time. After the bankruptcy of the Penn Central, it was then merged into Conrail. Eventually, Conrail was then split between both Norfolk Southern and CSX in 1998, making up today's railroads. Despite the Pennsylvania Railroad being long merged away, its presence can still be felt today, as a good chunk of its own railroad lines are still used today by other railroads, in particular Norfolk Southern. Not only do they own the most of the old Pennsylvania Railroad lines, but they also still use the old Juniana shops to repair and rebuild its own fleet of locomotives. So, when Norfolk Southern unveiled their new fleet of heritage units back in 2012 for their 30th anniversary, it was no surprise to anyone that 8102 was given its Pennsylvania Railroad Heritage Scheme to honor the former titan of the railroad industry. Ever since then, 8102 has been running around both Norfolk Southern and across the nation on other railroads, showing off its predecessor road, the Pennsylvania Railroad. After the Pennsy coal train got by, I then got on the road. Due to how slow the train was going, I was able to leapfrog it to the abandoned Duval Road railroad crossing, just south of Lockbourne, Ohio. After the train got by here, I was able to leapfrog it one more time to a pull-off along Canal Road/Road 247, north of Lockbourne, Ohio. Here, I got both cameras set up to get a coming and going away shot. For the next minute or two, let's watch as 8102 comes up the main line and comes past us. After the train got by here, I decided to end my chase of the Penzie engine here, but I caught one more train on this day. I ended up driving back to the West Main Street Railroad crossing back in Asheville, Ohio. Here, I saw on my ATCS map that there was a northbound train coming up the line. It turned out to be a northbound intermodal train, led by NS 1019 and EMD SD70 ACE 9678, a GE C44-9W, and 7702, a GE ES44DC. Just like with the Penzie train before, this train came to a stop as well, but unlike the Penzie train, it didn't have to wait long to get back underway. Once the front of the intermodal train got by here, I decided to call it a day and go home. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have a good day. See you later.